What a privilege to be in HR and to be a part of the human resource community globally. I'm going to talk to you today about one simple message and then 10 items which may help us do that message. Here's the message. I've written a lot of books. The first line of a book is often the major message of a book. And here's the first line of a recent book. HR is not about HR. HR is not about HR. HR is not about what we know, what we do, how we behave, how we act. HR is about the creation of value for others. So today I'm going to talk about that theme, the creation of value, and why that matters, what we do, and I'm going to give you 10 items to think about in the process of creating value as an HR professional. I hope these will apply anywhere in the world, and I know that you can see this session with subtitles as it's beautifully designed anywhere in the world. I've been around the world. I've been in Latin America, I've been in Africa, I've been in Europe, and always the question is, what do we do in HR to create value? So I have 10 points. So get ready with me. We're going to cover 10 points in the next few minutes about what HR can know and do to create value. Number one, understand the context. Context is the setting in which we do our work. And here's the reality. The setting is changing. We can do the right thing or the wrong thing. We can do it well or we can do it poorly. We all want to do the right thing well. But what happens is the right thing becomes the wrong thing because the context is changing so quickly. We see changes everywhere. We see changes demographically, socially, technologically, environmentally. These changes around the world cause us to need to do new things to create value. So my first encouragement to all of us as HR professionals, understand the context in which we live. Be aware of the social trends. That includes families, religion, sociology, where people live, urbanization, technical trends, which is affecting all of us. And I'll talk about that. The incredible moves in technology and digitization, economic trends and patterns of competition and who we compete with, political trends that are unsettling around the world in Europe, in Asia, in North America, in Mexico, in Latin America. Environmental trends. Be aware of some of the social responsibility we share and demographic trends. As HR professionals, we should recognize those contextual trends that change what we need to do. Point number one, understand the context. Number two, define value. What does value mean? And in this sense, I'm going to make it really simple. Value is defined by the receiver more than the giver. And let me say that again. Value is not what I know and do. It's what somebody gets from what I know and do. I was coaching a man, brilliant man, the head of finance in a global company. And I interviewed him and his subordinates, his peers, his boss. Brilliant man. Sat down with him and I said, "You're smart. You're brilliant. You know finance. You know strategy. You know the context." And he said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And then I said, "But you don't listen very well." And he interrupted me. And he said, "I listen fine." And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" And we talked back and forth. And he said the following, and listen carefully. "Listening means that I understand what you're telling me." And I said, "Say that again." And he said, "Listening means that I understand." And I said, "Sir, with all due respect, you're smarter than I am. You have a bigger job than I do, and you're wrong. Listening is not that you understand, but that other people feel understood." And he looked at me and said, "I don't understand." And I said, "I know, that's why I'm coaching you, because I want you to listen so that others feel understood." Value is not defined by the receiver. In my home, I've been married over 40 years, 43 years, in fact, over that long, to an incredible woman. Great wife, great friend, best friend in my life. Values defined when I give her a gift by her, not by me. Values defined by the receiver more than the giver. And so when I give Wendy, my wife, a gift, she defines the value of the gift. Now, what does that mean in HR? HR is not about what we know and what we do. The value is what we create for the business. And our job in HR is to create value for other people. So number one, understand the context. The world's changing. What worked in the past will not work in the future. I did a column on LinkedIn recently where I said, we don't want to circle, we want to spiral. And as we spiral, we get better and stronger. Number two, understand that value is defined by the receiver, not the giver. And so number three, who are the receivers or stakeholders of HR? If I give you just a 10-second pause to answer a question, who do we serve? Who are the customers of HR? And just think about that for just a moment. If HR creates value, who receives the value of HR? Now, I've given you 10 seconds to think about it. Let me tell you what we're learning. We have multiple stakeholders. Some of those stakeholders are the employees of the company. When I do good HR, the employee should experience well-being. And that concept of employee engagement or the recycled employee experience, the line managers should do their job better. But there also are stakeholders above. The customers outside the company, the investors, the community, the partners. If we in HR are successful, we are creating value, not just for the employees, not just for the line managers, that's within the firm, but we're creating value for the investor, for the customer, and for the community. And our job in HR today is to create value. I call it below the line. The employee, the line manager, no question, the employees get well-being and morale and productivity. The line managers get direction and focus. But above the line, the customer builds a relationship with the company. We've talked a lot about what we call outside in, and HR is connected to that outside point of view. Above the line, we talk about investors, either equity or debt or the parent company. Who is funding my company? Why do they have more confidence in my company? Because of HR work. Or we talk about the communities where we live. In all of those cases, HR is creating value for key stakeholders. So I'm going to keep reviewing. The job today is to think about, what do I do in HR to create value? Number one, understand the context of change. The past is not the present, nor is the present the future. Number two, define value by the receiver, not the giver. HR is not about HR. It's what somebody gets because we do HR. Number three, who are the receivers? The employees, the line managers, but also the customers, the investors, the community. We've done a lot of work at the RBL group where I live and work on those issues. How do we build leadership with customers? How do we get investors to see the value of what we do? How do we get the community to see the value of what we do? HR creates value for multiple stakeholders. Now, number four, when we walk into a meeting, what is it we uniquely bring? And this is going to be 4, 5, and 6, and I'll spend a few minutes on each of these. For example, let's assume there's a meeting and the business is talking about what we do to succeed. This could be in Latin America, it could be in North America, it could be in Europe, it could be in Africa, it could be in Asia. And so there's a meeting and a table, and the business leader at the head of the table says, we're going to try to succeed through innovation. That's good. We need new products, new services. Finance comes to that meeting and says, what's the cost of innovation? What do we have to pay? What are we going to get from what we pay? Marketing comes to that meeting and says, how will innovation serve our customers today and tomorrow? Operations comes to that meeting and brings information about how will innovation be affected by manufacturing, by supply chain, by operations. So when HR is in that meeting, what do we bring? What is our unique contribution? In HR analytics, which is a hot topic today, everybody's excited about the data. My first question is, what's the data we have to bring? So again, there's a meeting and it could be innovation, it could be customer service, it could be geographic expansion. Finance says, what's the economics? Marketing says, what's the impact on customers? Operations says, how do we build systems to do it? What's the HR conversation? Actually, if you're watching this with a group, it would be fun to have you write down, what does HR need data about? Now, as you've had a chance to think about it, I believe in a simplistic way there are 3 things. That when we come to a meeting to create value for the employees, the customers, the investors, there's 3 things we talk about. And it's going to be number 4, 5, and 6. One is talent. Do we have the right people with the right commitment in the right place? 2 is leadership, is organization. Do we have the right culture? Do we have the right organization? Do we have the right systems? And 3 is leadership. So here's what I'm finding in the HR field today. I'm in a meeting, and I do talks periodically like this with groups, and I say, write down, what does HR bring to the meeting? And people write things down. I put it on the board, and I put it in those 3 columns. What's our discussion of talent? Do we have the right competencies, the right skills, the right engagement, the right mix of people? What's our focus on organization? Do we have the right structure, the right systems, and what's our focus on leadership? Here's what I'm finding. 80% is in the talent column. In fact, if you look at the books that are hot in HR today, they're still about the talent agenda. In 2000, the McKinsey study did a great book called The War for Talent. We were focused in HR on people, workforce. Well, let me give you what we have found. We believe that when HR comes to that meeting, they ask 3 questions. Do we have the right talent? Do we have the right organization? And do we have the right leadership? And in fact, we've done research on it. And it would be really fun if you do your little test. Hold leadership off for a minute. If you have talent, in fact, what I'd love to do is have people, if you're in a group, hold up your left hand with 5 fingers. That's talent. We have good people. Hold up your right hand as a fist. That's the organization. Which matters more? Is it talent or is it organization? And if you're in a group, just quietly show each other. And you can't go like this. You have to, well, that's equal. Talent or organization? We've done research through the University of Michigan and the RBL group with Wayne Brockbank and Mike Ulrich and Dave Krasinski and our colleagues. Here's what we found. 80% of business impact is organization. If you have 10 points to divide, 80-20, organization. Organization matters more than talent. And by the way, that's so critical for the HR field. Because when we sit in that meeting, we do want to bring good talent, right people, right place. And I'll go deeper into that. But we've got to bring together the systems that make the talent better. Now, the example of that is sports. I don't know if many of you around the world have ever followed the World Cup. How often is the leading scorer, he wins the Golden Boot, great talent, on the team that wins the World Cup? It's a great question. How often does talent win the World Cup? And the answer is 20%. It's kind of interesting. In the recent World Cup, I can't remember his name from England, Frank Kane, I think was the winner of the Golden Boot, but they didn't win the World Cup. And so it's talent that matters, but organization matters more. I understand that Latin American teams like Mexico have pretty good talent, but they aren't always as good as a team as they could be. And that keeps them from the success they want. It's true in football or soccer. It's true in basketball. How often is the leading scorer on the team that wins the championship? 20%. In basketball, one of the greatest players of all time was Michael Jordan. He won 9 scoring titles. 3 times he did not win the championship, and he scored 36 points a game. 6 times he won the championship, and he scored 29 points a game. Until his personal scoring went down and the team got better, they didn't win. The same is true in Australian football. It's true in hockey. It's true in rugby. In any team sport, talent is key, but organization is more important. So here's the message, and then I'll do points 4, 5, and 6. The message is, when there's a business meeting, the business leader is at the head of the table saying, here's what we're trying to accomplish. And he or she is talking about innovation or talking about customer service or geographic expansion or stock price. Our HR folks, we ask 3 questions. Do we have the right talent? Do we have the right organization? And do we have the right leadership? And if we can answer those 3 questions and help get good answers, we help create value. Now, let me go through how that fits in our discussion. The discussion today is about the creation of value. HR is not about HR, it's about creating value. Number 1, we understand the context. What's happening to this business? Number 2, we know values defined by the receiver, not the giver. Number 3, those receivers can be inside the company, the employees and the managers, but they also can be outside the company, the customer, the investor, the society, the community where we live. Number 4, Do we have the right talent? Do we have the right talent so that our line managers will accomplish the business goal? Do we have the right talent so that customers will buy the product from us? Do we have the right talent so that investors will have confidence in our future? Well, as we go into number 4 on talent, we've discovered some things. There's 3 pieces of building talent. One piece is competence. By the way, at the RBL group, the company I'm a part of, we just had a think tank and we came up with 18 trends in talent in 3 buckets. Bucket 1 is competence. Do we have the right people with the right skills at the right time in the right place? Do we hire people? Do we source people? Do we have contingent workers? Do we have full-time workers? How do we get the right competence? Number 2 is commitment. Do we have an employee value proposition? Are they working hard? Are they committed? Are they doing their best? Are they doing all they can? And number 3 is contribution. Are they feeling good about themselves and what they contribute? In the talent space, we need competence. We've got to have good people. We need commitment. We've got to have people who give their best. They're engaged. But we need contribution. We wrote a book on contribution called The Why of Work. Why do people work? I did that with my wife. We did that a few years ago. As we've had that conversation over and over again, we found today there's really a couple of things that companies are looking at to help people feel like they're contributing. Do I believe in what the company does? Contribution comes higher when I have a belief. And so my job in HR is to create belief, to create purpose, to create meaning from work. Number 2, do I become better from work? Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I building what's called a growth mindset? And number 3, do I belong to the community? Does this feel like a community where we can live and work and take care and nurture each other? Okay. Number 4 is talent. Do we have the right talent? The competence, the commitment, and the contribution. Number 5 is organization. Do we have the right organization? And there's a lot of ways to define organization. We define an organization as a set of capabilities, what your organization is known for, what it's good at doing. That often gets translated into culture. Does my organization have the right culture? And our job in HR is to be the facilitator of that culture, to make sure that we have a culture that will help us win outside in the marketplace. Now, I love talking about culture. It's one of those things I've been focused on for much of my career, especially with my colleagues Wayne Brockbank and Norm Smallwood. What does culture mean? We love to go into a group and say, well, we were in a company in Europe and we said, you need to work on culture. And an executive said, culture means going to the opera. It means being dressed and cultured well. No, that's not what culture means. Culture is also not the values of the company. Most people define culture as the roots of the tree, and the company is the tree, and there's roots, there's values that are in the ground. It's our heritage, it's our DNA, it's our pattern, it's our norms, our expectations. We think that's an old definition of culture. We believe culture is the leaves of the tree. Culture is the leaves of the tree. It's where we're going. It's what we're known for. So when we go into a company and we're sitting at the table and finance says, do we have money? Marketing says, do we have customers? Systems says, do we have operations says, do we have systems? We say, do we have talent? We talked about, do we have the right culture? Do we have the right culture? Because culture should help us win. Now remember who we win with. Where do we create value? It's with customers, investors. And so this is how we define culture and try to make it real. Culture is the identity of the firm in the mind of our key customer. Let me say that again. Culture is the identity of the firm in the mind of our key customer, made real to our employee. Let me give a couple of examples that I hope highlights that. Around the world today, technology is booming. We're going to come to that in just a moment. It's changing the world. It's changing how we do business and information. One of the biggest players in the world of technology is Amazon. And I don't know where you are in the world, but there's a high probability that Amazon has a piece of your e-business, your technology business. And Amazon is so critical to what we do. So Amazon is a key. A few years ago, people said Amazon has a horrible culture. They're demanding, they're precise, they're rigorous. Wrong. Amazon's internal culture reflects what customers want from Amazon. Why do I buy from Amazon? They're convenient, they're easy, they're cheap. They need to have a culture that delivers that to me, the customer. Culture is the identity of the firm in the mind of the customer. And our job in HR is to be the cultural architects to help make that happen. Number 6 is leadership. Leadership intersects the employee and the organization. In movies, 20% of the time, the leading actor and actress is in the movie that wins Movie of the Year. 80% of the time, the director of the year in the Academy Awards is in the movie that wins Movie of the Year. Leaders matter. They shape the employee behavior. I do what my leader does. They also shape the culture by their actions. So our push on leadership, and with Norm Smallwood, we've done half a dozen books on leadership. Do we have what we call a leadership brand? Do our leaders inside the company think, act, behave, and feel consistent with what we promise our customers and investors outside? With our customers, we build a leadership brand. With our investors, we build what my colleague Justin and Al and I talk about, the Leadership Capital Index. We build a way that leaders communicate value to customers and to investors, as well as to employees. Oh, take a breath. Let me summarize what we've done. The message is that HR is not about HR, it's the creation of value. 6 points so far, with 4 to go quickly. Point number 1, the context is changing. Value has to evolve. Number 2, value is defined by the receiver. Number 3, the receivers are outside customers, investors, communities, as well as inside employees, stakeholders. Number 4, talent. Do we have the right competence, commitment, and contribution? Number 5, organization. Have we created a culture inside the firm that reflects the identity outside? Number 6 is leadership. Do we have the leadership that enables us to be successful? And number 7, do we translate that in the new digital world? Digital is changing everything. You're doing this conference around the world. We're not in one place. We can be anywhere. We can access ease of use, speed of use. Digital completely changes our world. Every industry I know is having an effect of digitalization because it provides information that allows us to work differently. Automotive, we have driverless cars. Entertainment, we have customized entertainment where Netflix will let you build your own product. Medicine, we have customized medicine and diagnoses around the world. Education, we do education through these forums, which are so well done by Recursos Humanos. I'm supposed to name them 3 times and they'll be happy with me. That's twice. I'll say Recursos Humanos the 3rd time and they'll be even happier. We build digital into everything. Our job in HR is to help make that digital strategy work. I've talked about this before. We help create an agenda for digital. We create a digital team. We make outcomes clear. We assess where we are digitally as an organization, and we implement the digital plan. Within HR, we should be doing digital work to do standard transaction work through automation, through digital processes, through technology. We should be using digital, collect and manage information that my colleague Wayne Brockbank talks about. And the one where I hope we're going with digital is connection. We should be using digital so that even at a distance, we can feel connected to each other. And here's my fear. A lot of times the digital revolution is not connecting. It's isolating. When I walked through an airport recently, I stopped and I turned around and people thought I was crazy. I was trying to see how many people had headphones on or were looking at their cell phone. And it was about half of the people. They weren't connecting with each other. We'd be walking side by side. I go to a dinner, I go to a restaurant, and I see millennials and they're eating a dinner at a common table, but they're all texting each other. In fact, some of the friends I've worked with have now got a bucket. When you go to dinner, you have to put your phone in a bucket, so that we build relationships, eye to eye, person to person. Our job in HR is to build belonging that we talked about, and digital can enable some of that. So, number 7 was digital. Am I in HR current in the digital age? Can I help build a digital business strategy, and can I use digital within HR? Critical factor for what we do in HR, and it builds the agenda for how we succeed. Number 8. Do we have the right HR department? There's been a lot written about HR departments, and they vary based on size. If you're a small, medium enterprise with one person, it's not complicated to be a department, or with 2 or 3 people. As you get bigger, we begin to become like a professional services firm. Regardless of the size of your HR department, here's my encouragement. It's the relationship, not the role. I'll say it again. It's the relationship, not the role. My wife and I have been together for 43 years. Not once have we done a GRIPPY, goal, role, or a RASI, responsible, accountable, consulted, on who does what. Here's the jobs of a house. You clean, you do laundry, you do dishes, you shop. Who's responsible? We don't do that. We have a relationship. And the relationship makes it work. This morning, I did dishes. This morning, I did laundry. Tomorrow, my wife will do dishes, and she may do laundry. The relationship is what we've got to have within an HR department. Now, we try to clarify roles, centers of expertise, business partners, but we've got to build relationships. Number 9, do we have the right HR competencies? Do we have the right HR competencies? We've studied HR competencies for 30 years at the University of Michigan, where we teach this in our advanced HR program. We've discovered that there's a set of competencies that become increasingly critical for driving results. And here's what we found. If you want to be invited to the business dialogue, you've got to be a credible activist. Build trust, have a relationship, be able to work with that manager, that relationship I talked about. If you want to help stakeholders succeed, customers and investors, you've got to know the business. I did a book called The HR Scorecard with great colleagues, Mark Huesler and Brian Becker. It's out of date. There isn't an HR scorecard. There's a business scorecard. And we've got to get HR on that scorecard. But when you want to drive business results, we have found in our recent research, you've got to have paradox. You've got to navigate paradox. Paradox means there's 2 things that don't go together, and you've got to make them work. Whew. Number 10. And I've covered a lot, but number 10 in my list is an exam question. It's one of my favorite exam questions I've asked when I taught MBA students a few years ago. Who has primary accountability and responsibility for the HR issues within a company? Who has primary accountability and responsibility for the HR issues within a company? A, line manager. B, the head of HR. C, it's shared. D, the consultant. And E, I don't care, I'm going into finance. Almost everybody marks C, it's shared, and I marked it wrong. I believe the ultimate responsibility for talent, leadership, and organization is the line manager. We in HR become the enablers. We become the architects. We become the facilitators. We become the coaches. I think we also become the anthropologists to observe. We help managers do this job so that they can help deliver value to the business. Wow. If you're still listening, I'm so impressed. I'm going to go through what we're trying to do today, and I've got 10 points with one message. Here's my message, and I'll illustrate it with a story. We did a 2-week program, University of Michigan, or in our consulting group, the RBL group. A participant in that program went home and did a survey to his business leaders. And he said, here's some of the innovative HR things in career planning, succession planning, hiring people, training people, paying people. What do you think we should do? Nobody cared. He got bad answers. And he called me and he said, Dave, your program wasn't helpful. I didn't get the answers that I needed. And I said, oh, my dear friend, we taught you wrong. HR is not about HR. Your business leaders don't care as much about the HR tools, career planning, succession planning, high potential, talent management through training. They care about the business. And so the mega message is HR is not about HR. It's about helping business win. And there's 10 points. I encourage you to look at these 10 points. Number 1, understand the context. What's changing in my world? Number 2, focus on value by those we serve, not what we do. Value is defined by the receiver. Number 3, define multiple stakeholders. I call it above the line, customers, investors, communities, below the line, employees, but serve multiple stakeholders. Number 4, have great talent. We've got to have the right workforce, the right people, the right talent, competent, committed, contributing. Number 5, have a great organization. Build the capabilities or the culture that turns customer promises into employee behaviors. Number 6, create great leadership. Not just the individual leader at the top, but a distributed, democratized leadership all the way through. Number 7, master digital and technology, both for the business and for HR. Number 8, create a great HR department, forged and built on relationships of trust and of connection. Number 9, develop great HR competencies, credible activist, strategic positioner, paradox navigator. And number 10, engage and support our line managers. Help them fulfill their opportunity. With all that, it's a great time to be in HR. What we do matters. We are the primary movers. What I call us, we love to think about when there's an earthquake or there's a fire, or there's a crisis in the world. We love the first responders. They go into the fire, they go into the cave, they go into the earthquake, and they respond. In our organizations today, we're the emotional and social first responders. We build talent, leadership, and organization that helps people, companies, customers, investors do better because we exist. My best to each of you, and I hope we can continue to be a part of this great profession.